Hi, ladies. Okay, I'm gonna record on my tablet, even though it looks really bad. Don't mind the paint back there, right there. My husband started painting before I ended up in the hospital, and then after that, we didn't really have a chance to get back to it. And then we got a notice from our landlord that she is gonna sell the unit, and we stopped all the painting and everything because anyways she's gonna sell it to somebody who's gonna buy it and change the paint color. In this video I want to talk a little about what happened with my labor and delivery. Everything was very unexpected considering how my labors were before I had Robert, and I was fully expecting to go past my due date and end up getting induced like always, except with my first. With my first, I actually went into labor on my own at 38.5 weeks, but every child after that, which were the next 4 pregnancies, I was induced because I went past my due date. But things were very different with Robert. So I'll get into it. My due date was January 22nd, 2016. I had gone to school until December, I think it was 8 was my last day, December 8. And I had just finished school a week prior. I had a lot of plans. I had left everything to the last minute. I hadn't prepared his clothes. I hadn't prepared the room. I hadn't prepared the bassinet. I hadn't prepared nothing. I was leaving everything until my school was over and I had no more homework and studying to worry about, and I was going to prepare everything because I still had about 6 weeks to go, or 5 weeks actually. So Actually, it was 6 weeks. So I waited and school ended. I rested for about a week, got off of that crazy stressful situation at school, studying and trying to pass that class. And on December 16th at 4 in the morning, I felt like I had to pee really bad. So I didn't feel like getting up out of bed, and I decided I'm just going to lay here 5 more minutes with my eyes closed, and then I'll get up and use the restroom. And I turned over to my left or my right, and I felt something gush, and then I felt something big coming out. Sorry, TMI. So I knew something was wrong, and I ran to the bathroom, and I was soaked. I didn't know if my water broke or what happened. And I'm not sure if I peed myself. That's funny, but I still had to go pee really bad. I figured if I peed myself, I wouldn't. That urge would have left. But there was a huge thing. My entire underwear and pants were wet, and I had blood mixed in there, and it looked like the blood was mixed in with some sort of liquid, like clear liquid. And I lost a huge blood clot. So I immediately called my mom. I told her she had to come over and my husband had to take me to the hospital. The hospital was 15 minutes away. I called my doctor. He said, get here as soon as possible. He asked me if I felt kicking or moving. He asked me if I was having contractions, if I was in any kind of pain, and I wasn't. I wasn't in pain, but my stomach felt like it was really tight. Like it wasn't letting go. It wasn't like a contraction where it gets tight and then loosens and tight. It wasn't like that. It was just tight and it wouldn't go away. So I hopped in the shower and I waited for my mom to get here, which took her forever, and I was really upset about that. I almost went to the hospital alone. But I got to the hospital, they hooked me up to some monitors, and I was really nervous because I hadn't felt the baby kick, and I was really worried that he might not be okay, but I have a monitor at home, the heart rate Doppler. I used that. I checked his heart rate. It was there. I think if I didn't have that, I would have been in complete panic mode and probably had a breakdown by the time I got to the hospital, because he did not kick the entire ordeal. He didn't kick from the time I woke up all the way till I got to the hospital, and finally when I was hooked up to the machines is when I felt his when I heard his heartbeat and felt his movements. And I stayed there for a few hours. The doctor came in and my bleeding had completely stopped. It was like a drop when I got there, and there was nothing else going on. So, but they had to keep me for 24 hours for monitoring to make sure everything was okay and the baby was doing fine. They kept me 24 hours. They did an ultrasound. Everything looked good. They checked my cervix. I was still closed. And the baby did great all night. He did really good. At this point, they had kept me in triage, and the beds were so uncomfortable. I did have like a mini breakdown in the triage because I did not want to stay there. I just wanted to go home to the kids, and I knew I had a lot of things to do. I wasn't ready for the baby to come. I hadn't prepared anything. And of course, it's not my choice, but I was still 5 weeks into, I still had 5 weeks to go to my due date. So the next morning, they discharged me at around 8:30, 9 o'clock. My husband took the day off. He picked me up from the hospital. We went home. They put me on strict bed rest. They told me the only thing I could do is get up to go to the bathroom and get up to take a shower, which was going to be very hard because this was on a Friday. My husband was that was on Thursday, and my husband was going to go back to work on Monday, and I had no help after that, and I had no idea how I was going to be on bed rest for 5 weeks until my due date. But we had to figure it out. So, that week, of course, that weekend, the following day, of course, I didn't take the doctor's orders. I put away laundry. I did some laundry. I was just so scared that I wouldn't be able to finish everything before the baby came. I was trying to get as much cleaning done so that I would be at peace that even if he did come, everything would be ready. So, of course, needless to say, I overdid everything. Sunday morning, I woke up and I cleaned out my kid's closet, and I came downstairs to have some breakfast, and I was going to go back upstairs to clean out my closet. This was December 18th, I think. Yeah. And I came downstairs, had breakfast, and I went to use the restroom, and I saw that there was more blood. It was red blood, it's not brown, so I knew it was just new bleeding. This time I didn't call my doctor because he told me, if that happens, don't call me. Just come straight to the hospital and as quick as possible. Even if you have to drive yourself, do not wait for people to come babysit. So I called my sister to tell her that I was bleeding. I was going back to the hospital to be on standby, and she insisted that she had to come take me. So I took a quick shower. By the time I was done taking a shower, she was already here. She picked me up. We went straight to the hospital. They hooked me back up on IV and everything. And I told them that this was my second time coming back for the same issue. And the nurse told me that I should prepare myself because the doctor's probably going to say I have to stay till the baby comes. And I got really upset and I said, no, I have no one to watch my kids. I have still another almost 5 weeks to my due date. And there's no way I could stay. And she told me, you're not leaving. You need to get used to that idea. And I just I was in denial. I didn't think that was true. When my doctor came in, I asked him, I said, are you going to keep me till the baby comes or can I go home? He told me I could go home if I stopped bleeding for 48 hours. So I was really praying for that every day. What is funny is that every day I bled, only in the morning, and the rest of the day I didn't bleed. There was a time where I didn't bleed for 24 hours during my stay, but then the following day it would be more blood than the day that when I bled day after day, like every day, there was less blood than the days where I hadn't bled the day before it. It was really scary. Every morning I had a little bit of blood clot and a little bit of red blood. There was one morning that had more blood clot and more red blood, and that was actually a morning after I had no bleeding the day before. And it was Christmas Eve. So I knew I wasn't going home for Christmas because I just bled that morning. It was Christmas Eve and I had to be there 48 hours. So even if I did not bleed till the next morning and still woke up not bleeding, they would not let me go home for Christmas. So that was a very hard day for me. I cried really bad. I called my husband, my sister, my mom. I cried to them all. I didn't understand why this was happening. They were doing ultrasounds and they were saying it's not placental abruption, but they can't tell what it is, and it might be placental abruption and they're not seeing it. They just weren't sure, and the doctor did not want to risk sending me home. And he even told me, I'm sure everything will be fine if you went home, but I'd rather not take that chance. And of course, I could have signed against medical advice form and leave, but I just couldn't bring it to heart to do that because I didn't want to live with the guilt of something happening to the baby because I didn't want to stay and I left. And the nurses just kept telling me, this is just one Christmas and you don't want to go home and regret the decision you made on this Christmas rather than staying here and then having many Christmases with this baby too. And I agreed, so I stayed. I stayed as long as I needed to. On December 29th at 1:30 a.m., this was about an hour after I had gone to bed, I was woken up by one of the nurses, and I thought she was just there to fix my monitor because I had monitors on me all those days. I was there already like 10 days. So I thought she was just going to fix the monitor, and because they had lost the baby on the monitor. And I told her, hold on, I gotta go pee. She said, no, you need to lay down. Your baby's heart has decelled and we're trying to figure out what's going on. And she came in and like 3-4 nurses rushed in at the same time. And they're trying to figure out what's going on. They have the baby on the monitor, but his heart rate has dropped to like in the 70s and 80s when it's supposed to be in the 156, 57, like up above 130 at least. And I started panicking. I didn't know what was going on. I guess the heart rate had decelled for at least 3 minutes for them to run in. And I think it took them at least another 5 to 7 minutes before the heart rate came back up. But as I'm laying there, I tell the nurse, I'm bleeding, I could feel it. She's asking me, you feel it? I said, yes. So they pull my underwear off and there's just a fountain of blood coming out and I could feel it. It was very scary. It was scary in the thought that I had no idea what was going on. I didn't know if the baby's heart was about to stop because it just sounded like it was getting slower and slower. It felt like forever. I just was like, can you guys just rip open my belly and take the baby out? I was so scared that he was going to die in there and there was nothing they could do. And so she told me, we need to call your doctor. One of the nurses ran out, called the doctor. Within about a minute or two, she came on the intercom in my room and said, I just talked to Dr. Frield and he said, prepare her for a C-section. By this time, it was probably 2:30 and maybe even 2:15-ish. Soon as she said that, they told me, do you have family? Can you call someone? Blah, blah, blah. So I called my husband immediately. I told him, you need to come to the hospital. They're going to perform an emergency C-section. The baby's heart rate has decelled and I'm bleeding really bad. And he woke up. I called my mother, told her she needs to come to my house as soon as possible. She needs to go to my house as soon as possible because my husband has to leave to come to the hospital so I could have a C-section. So she came, rushed to my house this time. She got here within 15 minutes. My husband was at the hospital within 30 minutes. And my in-laws were in town too, so we had them too in case it didn't work with my mom. But he came, and by that time my bleeding had stopped completely. It was like opening a faucet and then closing it. Then my bleeding had completely stopped. The baby's heart rate had stabilized. Everything was stable. Everything was good. I had been poked at least 5 times for an IV during my stay. The IV kept infiltrating, and the IV fluid, I got poked here, I got poked here, I had several here and here. I had so many bruises on my hands, it looked like someone beat me up really bad in that duration of the 10-11 days I stayed in the hospital. And it kept infiltrating, so like I guess that means the vein would clog, and then the liquids would start pouring out of the IV, like where there was an IV. There was one right here, and when the fluid was going in, it would start pouring out through the tape, like it would just start dripping, and I was telling them, like, this one failed too, you have to come put another one. So for the C-section, they had to have 2 IVs in. They couldn't do it. I ended up with just 1 IV, and they told me there's nothing we could do in case of an emergency. We either have to go through your neck, like a vein in your neck, or in your shin, like a vein near my shin. Thankfully, nothing went wrong during the C-section. Everything went right. But so the doctor came in. It was about 3:30 in the morning at that point. He saw that I had stabilized, my bleeding had stopped, the baby was doing good, my blood pressure was good, my blood work came back fine. He decided that we could wait till 6 o'clock in the morning to do it. Then it got postponed till 6:30. In the meantime, they had to put a catheter in. He also had to do a C-section, or not the C-section, I'm sorry, an ultrasound. And he did the ultrasound before they put the catheter in, and I had to go pee really, really bad. And I was just in so much pain, and I was so miserable because I wanted to go pee so bad. At this point, they woke me up at 1:30. I had to go pee, and it was already probably 4 in the morning because the doctor came in at 3:30, told me the plan, and then by the time they brought him the ultrasound machine, it was like 4. So I had been holding it that whole time. His ultrasound lasted probably 30 minutes. He was measuring the baby, he was measuring the fluids, he was measuring everything around the baby. He was really closely looking to see if the placenta is detaching, and it wasn't. So he didn't have any clue what was going on. And then, as if that wasn't bad enough, he had to check my cervix while I had to pee so badly, and I was literally begging him to let me go to the restroom first, and he said, just hang on, when I'm done with this, you'll get a catheter. That was really uncomfortable. When they put the catheter in after he was done with his exam, it felt like I had a bladder infection. It was so bad, because first I was in pain because I had to pee so bad, and then finally when they put the catheter in, just the feeling of that catheter going in and then the balloon in there just felt like I never relieved myself, and on top of that, it felt like I had a burning bladder infection. It was really bad, but it's all over now. It's a distant memory, and it wasn't, in the grand scheme of things, it was only for like 2 hours, and then they gave me the spinal, and then I didn't feel anything after that. But so we ended up going into C-section at 6:30, and they did the C-section. Everything was great. At this point, I was 36.4 weeks. So while the doctor was hoping I'd make it to 37 weeks, 36.4 weeks was better than 35, which is when I originally went in. And the baby came out. He was 6 pounds, 14 ounces. 19 inches tall, so he was a really good sized baby for being slightly premature. And he was breathing on his own. He did great. He was doing wonderfully. So they took him to where they would take me in after I was stitched up for recovery. And it was quite the experience. I mean, I had 5 babies previous to Robert, and they were all natural. I had epidural, but they were all vaginal births, so I'd never experienced a C-section. And after I did, I still don't understand why anyone would pick that. I mean, to each their own, but it was such a longer recovery. And till this day, Robert's almost 5 months old, and I still am recovering. If I do a little too much activity, I immediately feel it. I immediately feel where I was cut up from the inside. I also feel numb where this cut was, and it's so uncomfortable. Like when I touch my belly in that area, I could feel, it feels numb. It feels foreign. And I found out that that will never go away. And I had no idea that you have that feeling forever. I had no idea other moms who had C-sections have a numb like cut near their belly. I just thought it heals like normal and it's all done. I was completely expecting the numbing to go away. I figured once it heals, it will go away. But then as I talked to other women who had C-sections years ago, they said that there's never one way it's still numb. So I gotta say that's one really bad downside for me. The scar I don't care about because anyways, I don't think I'll ever have a bikini body, so it doesn't matter. Plus, it's so low that even if I did get to a point where I have a bikini body and I want to dress in a bikini, it wouldn't show anyway. But I most likely wouldn't dress in a bikini regardless. And kudos to the moms who can. But I with my body weight and everything, I'm not there yet, and maybe I will be one day. I'm just not there right now. And I also have stretch marks. But anyway, it was quite the experience. I had only slept an hour that night. I was so exhausted after the C-section. All I wanted to do was go to sleep. And I couldn't because I had a new baby. I had to take care of the baby. Plus, I had just come out of C-section. I had constant poking, prodding. How are you doing? Let me check your blood pressure. We got to get your heart rate. We got to do this. We got to do that. They had to constantly check my oxygen levels. All things that were new to me with this delivery that they didn't with the other one. I mean, my blood pressure was monitored and I had an IV, but I didn't have morphine shots like I was getting at this time, which was making me sleepier apparently, and I didn't know that. I had, they kept, like, my heart rate and my oxygen level was extremely important. Every time my oxygen dropped just a little bit, they would panic, they would run in and put the oxygen mask, and that was annoying all on its own. And one of the worst things I hated about C-sections is I had to lay flat or almost flat on my back the entire day after the C-section for 24 hours. I am very antsy. I don't do well with just laying around doing nothing. So the fact that I had to just lay there for 24 hours was like torturous. But I had to do it, and it passed, and I couldn't wait to get up and walk around and get that catheter out and the IV. I mean, after 11 days of having an IV, I was over it. I just did not want it anymore. I was done. And thankfully, I had to deal with it for, I think, 2 days after the C-section. And then they moved me to a different recovery room when the room opened up. And then at that point, they told me they could take it out because I was doing good. It was about 48 hours after C-section. And everything went well. I really begged my doctor to let me out 48 hours after C-section because it was already New Year's Eve. I wanted to be home and ring in the New Year's with my new baby and the entire family instead of doing it at the hospital. So he agreed. He said I did really well with the C-section. I responded with everything really well. My vitals were good, so were the babies. And I got to come home on December 31st, which was crazy. I did not ever imagine that the baby would be born before its due date. And it was good. I'm just happy that at the end of it, everything went well. He's doing wonderfully. Let me see if I could find a picture on my phone to show you guys, since he's not here physically. He did really well, and I'm so happy. He's so cute. He's smiling nowadays. It looks like he's about to get a tooth. There's a little white spot, and I can't believe how quickly these kids grow. I was not ready for a tooth yet. He's been doing pretty well, though, hanging in. He's not crabby or anything right now. I assume the night or the day before he's gonna get, when that tooth actually comes out is when they get really crabby. But there he is. That's my little Robert Austin. These are all my kids together. Well, that's bad. You can't really tell. But here he is. He just learned to play with toys like 3 weeks ago. There he is. He's really sweet. I'm exclusively breastfeeding him right now, except when he's in daycare because he won't take my milk. I have some pumped milk that he doesn't want. I think I have that Lapace thing or whatever it's called. And it's giving like a metallic taste and smell to the milk, and he just doesn't want it. But I'm using a formula called Whole. It's from Germany and it's organic, so it tastes really good actually. I tasted it and I would almost drink it myself. And it seems to be going good. He likes it. He's taking that. It took a little bit for him to take the bottle. I found that he really likes the Medela bottle. So we're doing that right now. And he goes to daycare 2 to 3 times a week and about 6 hours with my he's one of my 3 youngest children. So my other 2 youngest. He's going with my 4-year-old and my 2-year-old Joseph to the same daycare. But everything is going good, and that's my birth story. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Thank you. Bye.